So if you're reading the news, maybe about new drugs or gene editing or even big climate ideas, and you feel like maybe you're missing some key words, well, this deep dive is definitely for you.
Yeah.
We're not just, rattling off definitions. We want to give you the context so you can feel instantly more comfortable with these really important science debates happening right now.
Exactly. Think of this as a shortcut. We've looked at the sources, pulled out about 21 key terms, things from public health, bioengineering, climate science.
Right.
Having these definitions, this context, it'll really change how you process complex articles or conversations you might hear. Makes it much more accessible.
Okay, so we've sort of grouped these terms thematically. Hopefully that helps them stick.
Yeah.
Let's start with something pretty immediate. Health and healing and the different philosophies there. First up, alternative medicine.
Okay, alternative medicine. This refers to medical treatments that are not really part of traditional mainstream medicine.
Right.
They're often based on things like natural remedies or, more holistic approaches. The main distinction, usually, is that they haven't necessarily undergone the same kind of rigorous scientific testing as the other kind.
Right, and you see that in the examples like many people turn to alternative medicine, such as acupuncture, for chronic pain relief. But that definition helps contrast it with the next term, which is conventional medicine.
Right, conventional medicine. So this is the flip side. It includes the medical treatments that are widely accepted, widely practiced by the, mainstream medical community.
And it's usually based on solid scientific evidence, research gathered over time.
Exactly, generally based on substantial evidence and research.
Though in the real world, these lines can blur, can't they? Like one source says, many patients use conventional medicine alongside alternative therapies for comprehensive care.
That's very common.
But then again, for urgent things like trauma, acute medical problems such as accidental injury often require more conventional methods. Makes sense.
And sort of connecting these two fields, conventional and alternative, is this, huge industry that often funds development in conventional medicine.
Yeah.
The pharmaceutical industry.
Yes. Pharmaceutical. So the word relates to the production and sale of medicines, of drugs. And this is often where you see that tension, right, between like pure science and big business.
Absolutely. We know, as one source puts it, the pharmaceutical industry is one of the most profitable in the world.
Yeah.
But that profit motive, it comes under scrutiny. The sources point out the pharmaceutical sector is often criticized for the high cost of medications. And that financial side can influence, what research actually gets done.
And talking about taking medication inevitably leads us to think about potential downsides.
Yeah.
Which brings us to side effect.
Okay, side effect. Simply put, it's an extra and usually unwanted occurrence caused by taking a drug.
Right. Usually bad.
Usually bad, yeah. And this is why testing is so vital.
And the sources actually give two really different angles on this. One says, drugs should not be tested on animals because there are many possible side effects.
An ethical stance there.
Yeah. But then the awareness of side effects can also push people towards alternatives. Much of today's modern medicine has side effects. I prefer alternative therapies. So, different reactions.
Okay, so from sort of individual health choices, let's shift a bit. How does science actually validate any claim? This brings us to our sort of second block, the process of scientific validation, and the core method itself, the experiment.
Right, the experiment. It sounds simple, but it's fundamental. It's just a test done to learn something or to find out if something works or if it's true.
Exactly. And that definition, basic as it is, leads directly to the next term, drug trials.
Okay.
This is the really formalized process. It uses experiments specifically to test a new drug, assessing its safety and its effectiveness before it gets approved for public use.
And you really can't overstate how important these are, right? First, safety. Drug trials are essential for determining the safety of new medications.
Crucial.
But they're not simple, not just scientifically, but morally too. One source specifically notes ethical concerns often arise in drug trials, particularly regarding informed consent and risk to participants.
Yeah, that's a huge area. And the sort of gold standard for these trials often involves two key concepts. First one is the placebo.
The placebo. It's fascinating, really. It's a substance or treatment designed to have no therapeutic effect.
Yeah.
It's used in trials to compare the effects of the real drug versus, just the idea of treatment. It's a comparison point.
Precisely. As one example says, pharmaceutical companies use placebos during research to eliminate psychological factors from the results.
Right.
Which then leads us to this really interesting phenomenon, The placebo effect.
Ah, yes, the placebo effect. That's when someone's condition actually improves just because they think they are receiving an active treatment, even if they got the placebo.
It really shows the power of the mind, doesn't it?
It really does.
The placebo effect demonstrates how a patient's mindset and expectations can influence their recovery. So understanding this is vital for designing good experiments, to separate the drug's actual effect from just belief.
Okay, so after all the experiments, the trials,
Yeah.
what do we have? We often talk about having proof.
Proof, defined as evidence or argument establishing a fact or the truth of a statement. Now, what's interesting here is, while we use proof casually
Yeah.
in rigorous science, particularly in complex fields like biology or climate science, scientists often prefer to talk about, say, an overwhelming convergence of evidence rather than absolute proof in a mathematical sense.
That's a really important nuance for listeners, I think. Because you see statements like, the amount of evidence that scientists now have proves that climate change is being caused by humans.
Mm.
And while the evidence is overwhelming, using the word proof can sometimes sound a bit too final, maybe inviting debate, where the evidence itself is incredibly strong.
It's a subtle but important distinction in scientific communication. Okay, let's shift gears again. From testing methods to, the fundamental building blocks of life. Our third theme, the biotech revolution. Starting with the blueprint itself. DNA.
DNA.
Yeah.
Right, deoxyribonucleic acid. That's the self-replicating material carrying genetic information. In pretty much all living things, it's the core stuff.
It is. And within that massive DNA molecule, the key functional unit is the gene.
Okay, a gene.
So a gene is a specific part of the DNA in a cell. It holds information in a special pattern. You get it from your parents, and it controls things like physical development, maybe even some aspects of behavior.
And the examples show the impact, right? DNA testing is commonly used to identify biological relationships. That's very common now.
Very.
And another source knows genes are an important factor in personality development, which is, a whole other complex area.
Indeed. And understanding DNA and genes, well, that's what really opened the door to the possibility of cloning.
Cloning. So a clone is a plant or an animal that has the exact same genes as the original organism it was produced from.
An identical genetic copy.
Like the famous example, Dolly the sheep. She was the first mammal to be cloned successfully.
That's the classic case study.
And that technology, cloning, it immediately sparked huge debates about ethics.
Yes, ethics, meaning the moral principles that govern how someone behaves or how an activity, especially research or medicine, is conducted.
Right.
Cloning really forced us to confront those boundaries, didn't it? Between what science can do and maybe what it should do.
Yeah, exactly. And that ethical debate gets even more intense when we talk about actually changing the genetic blueprints themselves. Which brings us to genetic engineering or modification.
Right. This is the deliberate changing of the structure of the genes in a living thing. The goal is usually to make it, say, healthier or stronger or somehow more useful to humans. This is where science gets really proactive, maybe even interventionist.
And it's had a massive impact, especially on food. The sources highlight the controversies. There is evidence that genetically modified food is harmful to humans. That's one view you hear.
A common concern.
But then also the practical applications. Some plants have been genetically engineered to be resistant to herbicides, which is a major use in agriculture.
And those organisms that result from this process, they're known collectively as genetically modified organisms or GMOs.
GMOs.
Yeah.
Right. So plants, animals, even microorganisms that have had their genetic makeup changed through genetic engineering.
Yeah.
And the example given is very common. Most commercialized GMO crop plants are insect-resistant and herbicide tolerant. That covers a lot of the corn and soy out there.
Exactly. That rapid pace in biotech, it's kind of mirrored in our final theme, which looks at more global-scale interventions in complex systems. Let's start with a term you sometimes hear in really high-level climate discussions, geoengineering.
Geoengineering. Okay. Definition is the deliberate, large-scale intervention in the Earth's climate system. The aim is to try and control global warming. It sounds, well, incredibly ambitious and maybe scary.
It is. It's a huge concept, and it generally relies on high-tech.
High-tech. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, this just means using the most advanced, most developed machines and methods available.
So for geoengineering, you're thinking satellite systems, maybe ways to spray things into the atmosphere, really advanced stuff.
Exactly. Technology pushed to its absolute limit, and the debate around geoengineering reflects its scale. One source says, some scientists believe geoengineering is the only way to reduce the warming of the climate.
Like a last resort argument.
Kind of. But the potential risks are enormous, so another source states controlling the weather by geoengineering is a possible solution to climate change, but it is controversial. Highly controversial.
Understood. Now, if something like geoengineering were actually successfully implemented, it would likely be seen as a massive breakthrough.
Yes, breakthrough. That means a significant and sudden advance or discovery, either in science or technology.
We often hear it used, hopefully, don't we, like talking about clean energy. The recent breakthrough in renewable energy technology has reduced reliance on fossil fuels. That's the kind of breakthrough people hope for.
Exactly. Okay, let's bring it back towards public health for our last couple of terms. Thinking about infectious agents again, starting with the virus.
Virus. Okay. A microscopic infectious agent. It can only replicate, only multiply inside the living cells of another organism. But interestingly, the word is also used all the time for computer problems.
That dual meaning is totally common now, isn't it? You've got the flu is caused by a virus that spreads easily from person to person, biological.
Right.
And then computer viruses can damage files and compromise data security. Technological, same word, different context.
And our main defense against biological viruses, historically and currently, is vaccination.
Vaccination. The process of introducing a vaccine into the body. The purpose being to produce immunity to a specific disease. It's arguably one of the greatest public health tools we've ever developed.
The impact is huge. Vaccination has significantly reduced the prevalence of many diseases. Smallpox eradication, polio reduction.
Transformative.
And more recently, the COVID-19 vaccination program was one of the largest in history, a massive undertaking.
Okay, our final term. And this is one where the scientific meaning is quite different from everyday use. Theory.
Ah, yes. In everyday chat, theory can just mean a guess, right? or an idea someone has. My theory is.
Exactly. But in science, a theory often capitalized implicitly is something much more robust. It's a formal statement of the rules or principles explaining a whole area of study. Or it's a well-substantiated explanation for facts or events.
So it's not just a guess. It's built on a huge amount of evidence, testing, confirmation. Fundamentally different from a hypothesis.
Precisely. And you see the confusion sometimes, especially maybe in climate discussions. The example notes, there are two opposing theories on the causes of climate change. One says it is caused by humans, the other believes it is a natural cycle.
Right, but presenting the overwhelming scientific consensus as just one theory among equals misunderstands the scientific weight behind it.
Understanding that scientific definition of theory helps you evaluate the strength of the evidence being presented. It's crucial.
Wow, okay, so those 21 terms, we covered a lot of ground there. Medicine, biotech, climate.
We did, but hopefully grouping them thematically helps you sort of anchor these concepts when you encounter them again.
Yeah, the idea is you now have that linguistic toolkit, to read an article about, say, GMOs or drug trials or geoengineering and really grasp the core ideas and the nuances involved. Well, thank you for joining us on this essential vocabulary deep dive. We hope it was useful.
Hope so too.
We'll catch you next time.